All right, next on the list, we've got a very simple caddis larva. Caddis are extremely common in almost every trout river out there, and they are a must-have in your box. This is about as simple to tie a caddis larva as you will find, and that does not mean that it's not productive. It is a tried and true staple. So let's dive into it. We're going to use a Hanak 333 size 10 here. Caddis can come big, they can come small. So you can tie this a little bigger if you want, but certainly smaller, down to 16, 18, even 20 if you want. And if you don't have a curved hook like this, you can definitely tie it on just a straight shank nymph hook, like say a Hanak 230. The curve does look cool, but I'm not convinced that actually makes the fly any better. So take your pick. And to match up with that, we're going to put a bead on. In this case, this is going to be a 5/32 of an inch tungsten bead in copper. I'm just going to slide that onto my hook like so, threading this, of course, if you haven't used beads before, through the smaller of the two holes. I'm going to put my hook point through that and loop it around to the eye of the hook. Once it's on there, I'll snug that down. This fly works great with copper bead, but a black nickel is also a very nice look too if you want to mix it up. Now, to keep that bead from sliding around on us, we're going to lock it in using a little bit of lead or lead-free wire, in this case an 025 size. I'm going to take that wire and behind the bead make a few turns of wire, just touching edge to edge, and then break off the tag ends of wire. 1 and 2. Like so. You can take that wire now and just jam it up into the back of the bead. This isn't so much for adding weight, although it adds a little, as it is for just locking that bead in so it doesn't slide around on us. We're going to start with our thread now, and I've got some thinner thread. This is a 12-aught, I believe they call it dun color thread from Veevus, but you could definitely tie this with a little bit of a heavier thread as well, assuming you're not tying it super small. So what I'm going to do to keep this lead now buttered up against the back of the bead is start my thread behind the lead wire, make a few wraps there, and then I'm going to come over that lead wire and back down a few times with my thread just to bind it in place. And now that bead is really locked in, nothing's going to slide around. I can trim off my thread and we're ready to tie. I'm going to take my thread now and we're going to wrap it going down the shank of the hook. And you can't really say it's down to the bend of this hook because the whole thing is bent. So think of this as sort of almost the drop-off point where you're kind of going off the edge that we're going to wrap back towards on this curved hook. If this was a more standard sort of straight shank nymph hook, we would just go back to where that hook starts bending. For the body on this fly, a lot of caddis can come in different colors, but a lot of them tend to be a fairly bright poppy green. So this is an ice dub, which is a pretty sparkly dubbing in Caddis Green. You can definitely tie this in brown, and you can use more muted dubbings like, say, a hare's ear based dubbing like this. Those work great too. Caddis also are very often found in tans and browns, things like that too. So mix up the colors if you want, but green is a great one, and this will definitely catch the eye of fish. So I'm going to take a pinch of this, and we're going to try and keep this body fairly thin. So I'm going to start off with just a very small pinch of dubbing, roll it onto my thread, like so, and we're going to start wrapping that onto our hook. Again, just where we ended our thread at the very back of this hook, starting really thin back here, trying to keep a very tight, thin body, and then as we get a little bit further forward, we can start just barely ramping up this body a little bit, still trying to keep it pretty tight, but giving it just a little bit more profile. If that dubbing comes loose on you as you wrap, that's fine. Just take a pause and tighten it up a little bit. So that's all we really need, just a thin covering of that green dubbing. If there are a couple loose fibers on this ice dub, you can actually just sort of pull them off, break them off, keep a nice tight profile, like so. And then to offer a little bit of a contrast spot, if you've ever seen a caddis, which looks like a little worm, almost like a little inchworm on the bottom of a rock, you'll notice that a lot of the time they have these pretty vibrant green bodies and then a very dark head. And so to give us a little bit of contrast point there that would mimic that, I've just got some rabbit dubbing here in like a dark brown or a black. You could use ice dub, you could use really whatever you want. And I'm just going to take a pinch of this, and in this case I'm going to dub it on, but I'm going to dub it on fairly loosely. So instead of that really tight body that we were looking for, I'm now trying to go for a real kind of bushy head, and we're going to pick out this dubbing a little bit too to create sort of a leggy effect, because if you look at a caddis as well, they've got a few defined sets of legs up toward the head, or the thorax more specifically. So I'm going to wrap that on, but wrap it on fairly loosely, maybe put on just a touch more than that, like so. That's looking pretty good to me. And at this point, you just want to throw on a whip finish behind that bead, like so. And that bead will actually protect your thread pretty well from getting cut up by fish's teeth. But if you're going to apply a little bit of some kind of head cement or glue, in this case I'll use my Solarez Bone Dry here. Just do it carefully, try not to get on the dubbing. And you can even start it on the bead and then just kind of run it down into those thread wraps a little bit. Let it seep in there. Okay, hit that with my light, set it. And then just to finish off this fly, it looks pretty good as is, but I wouldn't mind that front bit looking just a little bit looser. And actually I'm gonna thin it out a little bit by doing this too. I'm just gonna take my dubbing brush here, my little Velcro, and pick that out. Not trying, you'll see, pick out the body, really just the thorax, this dark dubbing at the front. And then to thin this out a little bit, I can actually break off a few of those longer fibers, like so. And that is your caddis. Feel free again to mix up the colors and the materials you use, but this is a really good tried and true one. Fish it for steelhead, fish it for trout, just about anywhere. Let us know how you do.